Imagine this, folks. While American families are still paying the price at the pump and worrying about their sons and daughters being sent into another endless war, a small group of morally bankrupt insiders in Washington pushed the country into a war with Iran while money was already moving behind the scenes in ways that raise serious questions. And you know what? At this point, I'm not even shocked anymore. This is exactly what we've come to expect from these people. But here's what does shock me, what actually makes my blood boil. The shameless, wide open insider trading that's happening right inside our own government. I didn't think Pete Hegseth was dumb enough to do it himself. That was my first mistake. I figured even he would have the common sense to quietly hand it off to someone else and keep his hands clean. But according to a bombshell new report from the Financial Times, this guy was so greedy, so sloppy, he got caught trying to stuff his own pockets directly with war profiteering cash millions in defense stocks right before the bombs started falling. We are going to rip this apart piece by piece. But first, I want to start with the bigger picture. The kind of blatant insider trading that Senator Chris Murphy already exposed for all of us to see.
This White House is a full-time corruption racket, and we got the latest example of how early Monday morning, before you probably even showed up to work, at 6:50 that morning, a whole bunch of activity happens in the oil contracts market, about $580 million of trades. That kind of scale never happens on a Monday morning at 6:50, but it was happening for a reason, because people that were making those bets knew that a few minutes later, Donald Trump was about to post something on social media. What he posted essentially was an announcement that he was going to put off a tax on Iran's energy infrastructure and that he was going to invest in peace negotiations. And the result of that was that the price of oil, which had gotten really, really high, came down precipitously. And if you had bet the right way at 6:50, you made a whole bunch of money about a couple hours later. And of course, we know exactly what happened. The people that made those bets at 6:50, they were either members of Trump's family, or they were people who worked in the White House, or maybe they were just traders that got a phone call from their friend in the White House. Hey, Donald Trump's about to put this online. Place your bets. You can make a whole bunch of money. This is corruption. This is just astounding corruption. There are a bunch of millionaires and billionaires in this country who are making money off of their inside information, their access to what President Trump is going to do or what he is going to say. You, as a regular person, don't have access to that information, so you don't get to make those trades. You don't get to profit off of your connection to the Trump administration. But that's why we're not joking around when we tell you that this White House is a full-time corruption machine, because every week, nearly every day, something like this happens. Monday morning, you just saw the latest example.
This White House isn't just corrupt. It's a full-time, round-the-clock corruption machine, operating brazenly in broad daylight right in front of every American taxpayer. Think about it, folks. Normal Monday mornings don't see $500 million flooding into oil contracts before most hardworking Americans have even had their first cup of coffee. That kind of money doesn't move by accident. So let me ask you, who had the inside track? Who already knew exactly what Donald Trump was about to post on social media? Who placed those bets, knowing the price of oil was about to crash the moment he talked about peace negotiations? The insider trading has become completely rampant. And honestly, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if a large part of it is coming straight from inside the Trump family, maybe even Barron Trump himself. Would any of you really be shocked? When you look at the pattern, that's the most logical conclusion, staring us in the face. This is exactly why we call them the Epstein class, a small, tightly knit network of elites who all feed from the same trough. The same people making millions off insider information about this war are the very same ones who get even richer every time American bombs start falling. Why? Because they're deeply embedded in the military-industrial complex. And of course, they rush to defend Israel every single time, no matter the cost to American lives and American treasure. How convenient, isn't it? Israel keeps dragging us into these massively profitable conflicts. Our government obediently follows their lead, and the very same crowd that benefits from the wars also controls large parts of the media. Dare to point out that obvious truth, and they'll scream anti-Semite and try to cancel you on the spot. They're trying to do it to Hassan right now, simply because he refuses to stay silent about a regime that has already cost 13 American lives in this war. Your tax dollars, your sons and daughters' lives, your grandchildren's future. All of it being gambled away by the same tight-knit group that gets richer with every new conflict they help create. And yes, Pete Hegseth is one of them. He may have no class whatsoever, but he's definitely part of this club. I just never imagined he'd be foolish enough, greedy enough, and sloppy enough to do it so openly. Because here's the truth, folks. If you're going to insider trade a war for personal profit, at least have the basic intelligence and common sense to do it, discreetly. Not like this amateur hour performance that even a rookie could see through. That reckless move is now being exposed for the entire country to see in a new report right here. And that brings us to the latest chapter in this disgraceful story. Hegseth's broker reportedly sought to invest millions Incas in defense contractors in the run-up to war. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's broker reportedly sought to invest millions of dollars in major defense contractors during the run-up to the Iran war. In the weeks leading up to the initial February 28th attack on Iran, Hegseth's financial broker inquired about a multi-million-dollar investment in BlackRock's Defense Industrial Active ETF. According to the Financial Times, formerly called the Ishares Defense Industrials Active ETF, BlackRock launched the exchange-traded fund in May 2025 and invests primarily in global defenses, aerospace, and security-related companies. The Financial Times cited 3 people familiar with the incident who claimed the inquiry arrived on behalf of a high-profile potential client. Who could that be? And it was flagged internally at BlackRock. It was flagged. BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, and Hegseth have yet, that's surprising, to comment on the matter. The fund is designed to help investors pursue growth opportunities by investing in companies that may benefit from increased government spending on defenses and security amid geopolitical fragmentation and economic competition, per BlackRock's official website. In other words, just a pure military-industrial complex that profits off of our pain. Among the holdings of the IDF are companies that count the Department of Defense among its top customers. How interesting! According to the Financial Times, the outlet also found that Hegseth's investment did not go through. It didn't get to go through. But what a shame for Pete, because the fund was too new and not yet available for Morgan Stanley's clients to pursue. Hegseth reportedly earned $4.6 million over 2 years while at Fox. I don't know how that's possible. He was a weekend host. And of course, another $1 million in speaking engagements. This news comes amid growing scrutiny of highly profitable trades made in prediction in financial markets ahead of major policy decisions by Donald Trump's administration. On March 23rd, Trump and Hegseth the first. Trump said that Hegseth was the first to advocate for the Iran war. Trump said, "And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up," Trump said. "And you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon." So, we are now having really good discussions. They started last night, a little bit before last night, and I think they're very good. They want peace too. They've agreed. They will not have a nuclear weapon, etc., etc. Trump continued with his lies about fake negotiations. So let me ask you something. America, and I want every one of you watching, especially those who've worn the uniform, who've raised sons and daughters, who remember what this country used to stand for when leaders actually put America first. Is this really the government you want? A Secretary of Defense whose personal broker was quietly shopping multi-million-dollar investments in defense contractors just weeks before we launched strikes on Iran, while he was supposed to be making life and death decisions that could send your children and grandchildren into harm's way? Pete, you already walked away from Fox with $4.6 million in just 2 years, plus another million from speaking gigs, all while playing the tough, patriotic warrior on television. You cashed in once on your image. Now you're trying to cash in again on an actual war, while American families foot the bill in both blood and treasure. If you're going to engage in these blatant conflicts of interest while helping push America into another war on behalf of Israel, at least have the basic decency to do it. Sober. Show a little class, for God's sake. But in all seriousness, who among us is still surprised? The level of arrogance and outright criminality coming out of this administration has reached a point that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Why does every single insider in this White House suddenly have perfect timing and perfect information to make money off major policy decisions? Because Donald Trump doesn't care anymore. And let's speak the hard, uncomfortable truth that too many people are still afraid to say out loud. At this point, he is no longer fully in control. He has become a puppet, a sundowning, cognitively declining puppet whose strings are being pulled by the neocons and foreign interests around him. That doesn't make him any less dangerous. He remains one of the most destructive forces this nation has ever seen. I'll be leading the parade with champagne the day he finally leaves the stage. But how else do you explain Lindsey Graham and Benjamin Netanyahu being able to so easily drag him into this war at the absolute worst moment of his presidency, a war that has only made him more unpopular than ever? He loves war. He loves profit. And right now, while his mind fades, the people around him are taking full advantage with zero accountability. While he checks out, this tiny, ever-shrinking group of deeply interconnected elites continues to plunder and pillage the United States of America. They are getting filthy rich by abusing every single working American, sending our kids and grandkids off to fight their wars, stripping healthcare away from families who need it most, and making everyday life completely unaffordable for honest, hardworking people. They're even targeting young men, boys, already crushed by the worst economic conditions any generation has faced since the Great Depression through those slick prediction. Markets like Polymarket and Kalshi, conveniently backed by Trump and Don Jr. This is the Epstein class in action. This is what an Israeli-occupied government looks like in practice. And I am sick and tired of watching it happen right in front of our eyes. They enjoy free healthcare in Israel, yet here in America, we're preparing to kick 300,000 of our own citizens off their healthcare just to help pay for this. War on their behalf. We're going to call this corruption out every single day on this show, without fear and without apology, because if we don't speak up now, who will? If you're as fed up as I am, if you still remember the America you grew up believing in and you're tired of watching it get sold off piece by piece to the highest bidder, then hit that subscribe button and leave a like on this video right now. And if you stayed with me until the very end, drop a comment below that simply says, enough is enough. Let's show Washington just how many of us are done with this endless cycle of war, corruption, and betrayal. I read every single comment. Until next time, folks, stay vigilant, stay angry, and I'll see you soon.